All right, let's get ourselves started. Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Valad, and welcome to today's Learn One New Thing webinar, all about the Snagit Capture Window. This is a brand new series where we're going to take one particular topic inside of one of our products and boil it down to one session, 30 minutes or less. I'm an instructional designer and master trainer here at TechSmith, and it's my pleasure to bring you this information today. I am working on a Windows machine with the newest version of Snagit, so thanks for being here with us today. Let's go through a quick couple housekeeping things. First, today's agenda. I'm going to go through the entirety of the capture window, click on a lot of different buttons, and hopefully field some questions from you. We're going to talk about how to capture your screen, the scrolling capture, panoramic capture, the video styles, and the different effects that you can do right from within the capture window without even opening the editor. However, the number one question I do get asked at these webinars is, hey, is this being recorded? And the answer is yes. Today's session is being recorded, and you will get a link to that recording in about 24 hours sent to the email that you use to register for today's session. Watch it as many times as you want, share it with colleagues, use it as a personal reference point for your learning. We also have a lot of TechSmithies joining us here in the webinar today to help answer your questions. At the bottom of the Zoom webinar interface, there is a Q&A section there. If you have a question that you hope for us to answer, and we'll have a little bit of time within that 30 minutes to answer questions, I recommend putting it down there. They will get answered to the best of our ability. Well, we can't get to everybody. We'll do our best, but they'll answer them there in that Q&A section, and then they'll also possibly pass a few along to me to answer live. The chat is also open for casual conversation. We're glad you're here and hope you get a lot out of today's session. The other thing is we also have the live transcription turned on, which is your ability to utilize closed captions. If you would find those helpful, they are live transcribed by Zoom, and they do a pretty good job with it. So if you would find those valuable, go ahead and turn those on. All right. With that being said, before we get into the ending, let's get into the beginning. We're going to talk today about the Snagit Capture Window. Now, first, this is the Snagit Capture Window in all of its glory, but it's kind of small. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go in, right-click on my desktop and go to Display Settings. And I'm going to actually scale the size of my screen up to 225%. And when I do that, it'll actually make the Snagit Capture Window bigger. And this is where I'll check in with my team back in our back-end chat to make sure, did it in fact get bigger for you? And does it look nice and crisp? This is Ross, Robert, and Melissa and the team, if it looks nice and big. That way people will be able to get really great detail. Thank you so much, Melissa. Appreciate that. So this is the Snagit Capture Window. So Snagit's broken into two primary parts: the capture window, which we're seeing on our screen, and the editor, which we'll talk about in other sessions. So today we want to go around the capture window and kind of give you a lay of the land. First, the first thing you always want to look at are the menus. There's a file menu, edit, view, and so forth. The most time you'll spend in any of these menus will be under the file menu, capture preferences. When you launch this gives you a little bit more control over what you can do within the Snagit Capture Window. It allows you to make sure that it turns on automatically when you turn your computer on or when Windows starts. I leave this checked by default because I always want Snagit at the ready so that we can use it for all my projects as I have myself set to go. I also can tell Snagit whether or not I want the capture window or the capture window and the widget. So I'm going to toggle on the widget just for a second. The widget is a small piece that pops up on the top of your screen right here that is always present, and it can be moved around wherever you would like it. I don't use this as much, but it is helpful for some people that don't necessarily want to have the capture window at all times. They might want to just pop up here, hit the capture button, and make a capture with Snagit. Let's go back into the capture preferences, and I'm going to toggle that one off, back to just the capture window itself. You do have theming controls, so you can have a light or dark mode depending on your desires. You can have Snagit automatically check for updates. This might be slightly different for you if you use Snagit in a corporate environment where that's being controlled by your IT department. You can do that as well. Up at the top, there's a second tab here called the Capture Settings. This is where you could change a lot of different things, including whether or not you want Snagit to hide when capturing. This is a question we get asked quite often, and it's, I want to show people how to use Snagit, but I want to capture Snagit with Snagit. This is how you can toggle that on and off, so you can leave Snagit up and running when you want to capture it, or hide it when you capture it later on. So I typically have this checked so that I'm only capturing the content that I want to capture. But you have your capabilities of video recording, showing the countdown, the quality, all those controls are right here inside of the capture tab of the preferences. The third one I like to bring up is the hotkeys. There is a tab, there is control over some of the functions, the basic functions in Snagit using hotkeys. The ability to show and hide Snagit, to repeat the last capture, start, pause, and resume your screen recording, to stop the recording, and enter the screen draw mode, which is a cool part of newer Snagit released this past fall, when you actually do drawing on your screen while it's live. You can change these to your heart's content. And if the only thing you can't do is change it to something that's already being mapped to another program, unless you wanted to override that. So if you're a keyboard shortcut person, you do have some flexibility within Snagit. So we'll close this back out and go back to the capture window itself. So within the capture window, you can do a lot without ever having to open the editor, depending on your particular workflows. There are three primary capture types that you can make with Snagit. First is the all-in-one. The all-in-one capture is pretty much where I leave Snagit all the time. I like to make game time decisions. So I might launch Snagit and start a capture, and I'm not sure at that moment whether or not it's going to be a still image capture, a video, or a panoramic capture. The all-in-one allows me to do that because when I hit the big red capture button, it launches Snagit. It allows me to click and drag over a region that I want to select, and then I can choose whether it's an image, a video, or a panoramic capture at that point. You also do have the ability to start right off with an image capture itself by clicking on image, or a video by clicking on the video. What I really wanted to do, and the biggest part of this style of webinar is, yeah, you can click any of those and click the capture button, but there's a lot of functionality built right into the capture window that some people might not take advantage of. So let's start with the all-in-one tab. And there's a little caret menu, a little flyout menu here that if you click on it, it actually exposes a couple of options for you. First and foremost, it allows you to choose the type of selection you want to make with Snagit. Most often, people use the crosshairs that show up in Snagit and click and drag over an area to capture it. That is called a region selection, where you click and drag over the area. If you click this drop-down menu, there's a couple of other options. There's a window option, which means if you have a program open, a window program, maybe it's a browser window, an Explorer window, or another program, Snagit can snap itself to that window and capture that specific window itself. Or sometimes it's really helpful for context around what you're trying to share with your audience. You can do a full screen capture by choosing that here as well. You can define those right within this selection tool. The thing that people don't know or choose to not know about is this gear icon. When you click on the gear icon to the right, it gives you even more customization depending on the capture type. So fixed region would be if I wanted to have it only take a picture of the lower left-hand corner of my screen. Maybe I'm running some sort of software that gives status updates, and I want to capture just that section of the screen. I can define a fixed region by using that choice, or the default is select region at capture, which just means I'm going to use the crosshairs in Snagit to click and drag over a portion of my screen that I want to capture. You can also directly share from the capture window. So if you're going to make a capture, you can then tell it to send it somewhere. So depending on where you want your content to go, we have a lot of options in here, and my options might look a little different from yours because you can customize this list a little bit. You can add destinations, remove destinations. It also is dependent on your work environment. If you're using Snagit in a corporate environment, they may have turned on or off different destinations. But more often than not, I send my images to Screencast for easy sharing and easy collaboration around a particular image or video. I also often share it to Slack, which just happens to be the internal chat tool that our team uses. In fact, we're using it right now to talk back and forth with members of our team inside this webinar. But you can see there's other options, there Dropbox, Google Drive. I can even send my images and videos that I make in Snagit to Camtasia if I have Camtasia installed, so I can build bigger videos out of the content that I have. So you can make those captures happen right away without any extra effort. The other things that are on over here are some toggles for some options within the capture window itself. Preview and editor, when that's toggled on, that means when I take a capture, it's going to capture it with Snagit like normal, but then it's going to pop open the editor and show you a preview inside the editor. That's great if you're going to be doing any kind of annotations, if you're going to be adding arrows or callouts or text, or you're going to add a watermark or stamps or something like that. It gets it ready to go for you. I almost always toggle on copy to clipboard as well. That means when it captures to Snagit, it'll be inside Snagit in the editor, but it's on my clipboard, which means I can Control V or paste. If you're on a Mac, it's Command V into a program that I've already got open. I do this often with Slack, and I do this often when I'm building out PowerPoint presentations. I'll just have it on my clipboard. I'll paste it where I want it to be. I use that phrase generally. I almost always have capture cursor toggled on as well. That allows me to capture the cursor in the screen itself, wherever my capture is. So it's really, really helpful that it gives you context around what you're showing. You can use Snagit to remove that cursor later, but if you would prefer to have really crisp, clean images, you can tell Snagit to not capture your cursor, and the cursor will be out of it at that time. You do also have the ability toggle on a 5-second delay. So a delay in capture means when you hit the capture button with the delay turned on, you'll get a 5-second countdown. What that does is it allows you to prep the screen for your capture. This happens most often, well, I'll show you. If you're in a window, say in like Google Chrome, where you have menus that cascade, or if you click in here and you want to show people how to get to the tool section, as soon as you click away from that, that menu goes away. If I have the delay capture on, it'll allow you to do that. In fact, let's do a delayed capture right now. In fact, we'll do a region selection and we'll share it to, we'll share it to Camtasia for fun. 5-second delay. I'm going to hit the capture button. The 5-second countdown's happening in the corner. So I'm going to expose those menus that I wanted open. And now it freezes itself in that area and allows me to capture that. Really, really helpful for those cascading menus. Really, really helpful. The other thing that you want to notice in the capture window is underneath the capture button, most likely yours says print screen. Now, more often than not, your basic Windows keyboards have a print screen button, and Snagit maps itself to that so that you can click on that print screen button on your keyboard and launch a capture right within Snagit. What you might not know is if you click into that area, that is actually a customizable hotkey. Mine is Control-Shift-8, and the only reason I made it that is because I mapped it to a keyboard that I use that doesn't have a print screen button. It's got this little camera button up here in the right. So I just made that camera button Control-Shift-8. I made Snagit Control-Shift-8, and now all I have to do on my keyboard is hit that button, and I start a Snagit capture state right from my screen. Really, really helpful. Allows me to do things really, really quickly. So that is a general overview of the all-in-one tab. Let's take a look at the image tab. But is there any, I'll look over here, see if any questions have come in before I go any further. Rick question says, last time I heard Jason comment on this topic, he suggested increasing the screen to 150 before a Snagit image capture. Today he did 250. Has this changed? Rick, that's a great question. I just changed it because I'm on a 4K monitor and I wanted to show Snagit larger. I only bumped it up this far so you can see Snagit really well. I'm not actually capturing anything. I'm not making a video. This was just for the benefit of people in the webinars. Generally speaking, it is helpful to scale things up a little bit to get a really crisp capture because whatever you capture on your screen with Snagit, whatever state it's in at that moment, is the capture Snagit will take. And video and images don't scale really well. So if you take a picture of something that's this small and you scale it up, it's going to distort or become pixelated. But if I take a really big picture of it in a really crisp, clear, scaled up screen, it'll be that quality, and then I can make it smaller if I need to. Great question, though. And be sure, if you have questions throughout this session, go down to the Q&A section of the webinar and ask them right in there. All right, image tab. The image tab has some built-in functionality, just like the all-in-one. It allows you to do a selection as well, which is the same. So you have the region, window, and full screen. It also has built-in things like scrolling and panoramic. Panoramic's actually one of my favorite things. Grab text and even more advanced settings as well. So you can, right off the bat, choose a selection type for your image. I almost always leave it in region capture because I like the control of clicking and dragging over what I want to capture. You can add effects directly to your image right from the capture window. So the effects are things that Snagit helps make Snagit stand out. You could add a border to your image, a filter, shadow, the capture information, which is like the program, the date, the time it was captured. If you're doing a series of pieces of information, you can do color replacement, you can trim, you can add like torn edges. You can do all that right from the capture window itself. You can even add a watermark. But the thing that people don't realize, and I think this is really cool, is you can add multiple effects. So, for example, let's add a border. And when I click border, that gear icon shows up so that I can customize the border. I want to add, I don't know, a yellow border to my image, and I'm going to have it be a 12 pixel width. Pretty substantial border. But I also want to trim around the area. So I'm going to go down in the drop down menu, add another effect, and have it automatically trim the edges to auto trim, which means it's going to make it nice and crisp inside of that capture. I can also, just like with the all-in-one, define a place to share it to. So in this case, I think I might share it to, we'll send it to a Word document just for fun. I'm not going to worry about previewing it in the editor because if I do all the things inside the capture window to set up where it's going to go, unless I'm going to do something to it later, I don't need to see it right away. I don't need it in the editor to add arrows or anything like that to it. When I capture with Snagit, it is still going to be in my library. So if at a later time I want to annotate it, I want to add it to my video from images and make a video out of it later, I can. I'm not going to worry about capturing it to my clipboard. I'm not worrying about the cursor, and I'm not worrying about the time delay, but I've set up these parameters. And so for fun, let's go over here. I'm going to bring this window over here. This is just a window for questions for the webinar. And I'm going to start a capture where I've got the region capture here. We're going to click and drag over it. Well, I think this is scaling is what's causing that. So I apologize for that. So let's pop back out of this for just a second. I don't know why it's doing that. That is really, really funny. I'll capture it over here and see I think my scaling is giving me challenges. So let me drop my scaling back down for just a second. There we go. Bring the Snagit Capture window back up. So we'll go through and capture, and then that'll automatically grab that information. Well, now it's acting all kinds of funny. See, this is what happens when you do webinars in a live experience. So I am going to tell Snagit to take a break for just a second. And I'm going to restart it. This is live as webinars go, my friends. That's why we do these live, because real things happen. So we'll pull Snagit back up. There it is. We'll go back to our image capture. So I've got it scaled down just for this session. So we'll go back to the border. We'll make it yellow like we were before. We will scale it up to, I think we did 12 before. And then we will do the auto trimming. And we're going to send it to a Word document without previewing it in the editor. Okay, let's do this again. So we'll hit capture. And I'm going to trim outside of this window because the auto trim does a pretty good job. And as soon as I let go with my mouse, that capture has been taken. It's actually launching Microsoft Word. Yep, it just did. It brought it into my other screen. And I'm going to bring it over to you to show you that it, in fact, put it in there and has it ready for me to share with my documents. Pretty awesome that it does that quickly with very little effort from me. And I forgot to add my border. So the border was missing. Silly Jason. There we go. So we'll capture again. We'll send a word. This time it'll have a border on it. And there's our image with the yellow border built right into it. So you can do that right from the capture window. Let's look at video for the same thing. So when you go to video tab, you have the options as well for video capture, which is you have selection capabilities just like before. You have the ability to do a region or a window capture. I typically do a region capture for video because a lot of my video captures are actually talking heads, just a capture of the webcam like we're showing here in the webinar. And the larger you make those, it increases the file size. So if you're not sharing it to a cloud destination like Screencast or Dropbox, a consideration is the size of your video. But we do have the ability to choose the share destination as well. So these share destinations are ones that support video, everything from Camtasia to Google Drive to Dropbox and so on. I can tell it whether or not I want to record my webcam or not. And there is some options underneath the webcam to choose. If you have multiple webcams, like I had usually a couple plugged in, the one I've got chosen here, this cam link is the one I'm using for the webinar today. You have the placement capability, like where do you want that picture in picture? If you're going to be recording your screen and your webcam together, you get your top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, or full screen. And something that's actually really fun within those options is you also have the ability within Snagit to choose the shape of your webcam. It used to be just your traditional, we call it postage stamp, right? A little rectangular box in the bottom right-hand corner. Now you can make it a circle, a rectangle, a rounded rectangle, a square, a rounded square. It just gives it another level of elegance for capturing your webcam and having it set to go and looking nice and crisp and clean. A really professional way of sharing your webinar cam or your webcam right within the Camtasia or the Snagit recorder. So you can make all those choices. You can still preview an editor, whether or not you want to capture cursor. You can say whether or not you want to record the microphone. So you might be choosing to do a screen recording that has no audio. In that case, you would turn off your webcam and turn off your microphone. But just like the webcam gave you options, you do have the ability to choose your microphone if you have more than one plugged in. I just have my built-in one to my laptop or my good mic that I'm using for this webinar right now. So I'd make sure I choose my really good mic. And then you can also choose whether or not you want to record your system audio. So system audio is the sounds that would typically come out of your speakers. So the way I describe this is if you're teaching someone how to do something on the computer and there's some sort of notification sound or an error notification noise that comes in and that needs to be part of your teaching, if you toggle on that record system audio, Snagit will capture that as well. So you have the ability to have that captured as part of your overall experience. And then you just hit your capture button and you're good to go. Now, there's a couple other things in the capture window that are kind of important to know. One is you do have the ability to open your editor right from the capture window. So if you wanted to go in and start working on an image you already had captured, you can click on the open editor button and that launches the editor right here. As a matter of fact, I have it open with all the Learn One New Thing sessions available to you. You can do that right from the capture window. You can also open up and launch and create presets, which I'm not going to go into today because actually my next session is all about the creation of Snagit presets. And oh my gosh, if you're not a preset user, you might want to check out that session. That is going to be next Monday, this coming Monday at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, where we're going to talk about saving time, especially if you're creating a lot of the same capture types over and over. Last but not least, when you're customizing all these things and you're toggling them on and off and you're changing things around for different capture types, sometimes it's nice to just go back to where you started, where you have all those options turned off. It's easy enough to do that. In the upper right-hand corner of the capture window, there is this little curly Q arrow. When you click on this, it takes your capture window back to its original state. So if you had things toggled on and you were ready to make a capture and you're like, I'm done with that capture type, I want to just go back to a regular capture type, you can click that curly Q arrow and it sets yourself back to the beginning. That's what I wanted to cover in today's session. I wanted to go through the tools inside the capture window, make sure you knew about the capture preferences. You do have other options in here, the ability to show that widget really quick on and off there. The share preferences in the view menu also allows you to add and subtract different share destinations if you would find those valuable. You can download them free from our website. You can add those right in as well. While we've got a couple minutes left, I'm going to go over to the team and see if there's anything that's been added to our questions document or anything that's being put in Slack. I'd be happy to answer questions about the capture window, maybe something I went over a little too fast for you, or perhaps a question that didn't get answered while we were in there. So yeah, if you find these helpful, and I appreciate the kind words, Jim and Sarah, for that. If you find these kinds of sessions useful, let us know. Or if there's parts of Snagit or Camtasia, if you're a Camtasia user, that you want to dive a little bit deeper into, please let us know. The sessions we've got scheduled as of right now is today's was the capture window. We're going to go over the presets. We're going to talk about the Snagit toolbar, just this section of the tool right up here, because we're going to demystify this a little bit, as well as we're going to get into a session about quick styles and themes, because did you know you can customize the color themes? Like I have one that's just Camtasia green colors, or just one that's the purple for Audiate. We're going to go over all of those as well. So I'll take one more glance over here. Yeah, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. If there's any other questions, we'll post them now. If not, we'll say thank you so much for being a part of today's webinar, especially with my little blips of technological challenge, which happens sometimes, but I appreciate you sticking in there with us. You will get a recording to this at some point 24 hours from now, tomorrow, with your email that you use to register. Otherwise, thanks so much for attending, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.